When most people hear Haiti, they think of poverty, earthquakes, or gangs. But that's only the surface. Haiti is the first Black republic in the world, the only nation where enslaved Africans rose up, defeated Napoleon, and declared independence. Haiti was also the richest colony on earth. Its sugar and coffee filled France's banks and helped make it one of the wealthiest empires of the 18th century. But that wealth came at a devastating price. Africans were forced to work from sunrise to midnight in the sugarcane fields and coffee farms until their bodies broke. Conditions were so harsh in these plantations that the average enslaved person in Haiti survived less than 10 years. I mean, they grab you, they take you to the plantation, and you are a slave, trust you me, you are not going to survive 10 years. But in 1804, Haiti smashed that system. It destroyed slavery at its root and proved that Black people were not destined for chains, but for freedom. And for that act of defiance, the world never forgave Haiti. From that moment on, punishment became its inheritance. By the end of today's episode, I want to walk you through how France shackled Haiti with impossible debt, how America invaded and rewrote Haiti's constitution, and how the United Nations brought cholera and abuse. We will also dig deeper on how Bill Clinton turned Haiti's food supply into a business deal for his own country, and how today, as you know, gangs control nearly all of Haiti while the world once again prepares to intervene. This is not just a story of one Caribbean nation. It is the story of how the world has treated Black freedom for more than 200 years and why Haiti's struggle is far from over. Now, before the revolution, Haiti was not yet called Haiti. It was Saint-Domingue, France's prized colony in the Caribbean. The land was very fertile, the climate perfect for sugar and coffee, and it became the most productive plantation economy in the world. But the colony's wealth was built almost entirely on the backs of enslaved Africans who outnumbered whites by more than 10 to 1. Nearly 500,000 men, women, and children were shipped across the Atlantic to work its fields. Well, a small white elite and a mixed race-free population controlled the land and the profits. To Europeans, Saint-Domingue was a jewel. To the Africans who lived there, it was a prison. Whispers of rebellion spread through the plantations. Africans carried not only scars on their backs, but also memories of freedom from their homelands. They spoke different languages, came from different tribes, but shared one desire: to end the system that was grinding them to death. And yet, this is where history changed. In 1791, those enslaved Africans did the unthinkable. They rose up, first against the French planters, then against invading British and Spanish forces, and finally against Napoleon's army, which, if you guys remember, Napoleon's army was the most powerful military in the world at that time. For over a decade, they fought battles after battles until they won. By 1804, under leaders like Toussaint, Jacques, and Henry Christophe, Haiti declared independence. It became the first Black republic in the world, the first nation born from a successful slave revolt. But from the very moment Haitians raised their flag, remember what we said, the powerful nations of the world made them pay for daring to be free. I mean, it's in the 1800s. How dare you, African slaves, decide that you can actually be free? But Haiti, the people did that, and they decided, you know what, we do not care whether it's 1800, 1700, 1600, we want our freedom, and we want our freedom now. And you gotta give it to them, because these are people who are coming from different parts of the world. You have some people from East Africa, you have some people from West Africa, all of them that had landed in Haiti as slaves decided, no, you are not going to do this. And not only are we going for France, for Britain, for Spain, we are also going to fight Napoleon's army. And guys, when you go back and realize that was the 1800s, you just gotta clap for these people. That was some level of willpower that we don't even get to see today. And so They were free for a moment there. But then again, in 1825, just 21 years after independence, France sent warships to Haiti's shores. The message was very simple: pay us for the loss of our slaves or face invasion. Now imagine that. Enslaved people fought their way to freedom, only to be told they must compensate their former masters. Like, we fought for this thing, and now you are back, even more stronger, and you are telling us we either surrender or we give you guys compensation. And honestly, Haiti had no choice. The revolution had won their independence. They had the freedom and the independence, but it also left the country in ruins. Plantations were burned. This is what these people do once they realize you're winning. They burn the plantations, they destroy the cities, and nearly 500,000 people had died in the fighting. This young nation, Haiti, was very free, but it was also very exhausted. We are just coming from war after war after war, trying to win our independence. And then, man, you've destroyed everything, and now you are back. We are not even 30 years old. You are back. You have to remember, most of Haiti's people who were formerly enslaved, after the revolution, they finally controlled the small plots of land, but also they refused to return to the old plantation system, where a few owners grew sugar and coffee for export, while everyone suffered. They said, we don't want this anymore. So instead, they focused on farming, mainly for themselves and their families. That meant Haiti no longer produced sugar and coffee in the huge amounts it once did, and even the crops they grew, like coffee, had nowhere to go because the world powers closed their markets. You guys, you think you are going to get freedom and then we let you trade with us? No. France, Britain, Spain, and the United States all agreed to cut Haiti off to make sure that they set a good example of these people so that black freedom does not spread. So you can imagine, by the time France is coming back, the kind of Haiti they are coming back to. So when these French warships appeared in 1825, loaded with cannons and soldiers, the threat was real. France was still a military giant. Haiti had no navy, no allies, and no money to fight another war. The revolution had cost them too much. If they resisted, they risked invasion, another round of bloodshed, and possibly losing everything they had fought for. No, they were not ready to do that. And so they signed, not because they wanted to, but because survival left them no other option. And that signature locked Haiti into a debt trap that would last more than a century. We are talking about 100+ years. France went ahead and demanded 150 million francs, an amount so huge it would equal to 20 billion US dollars today. And for context, so guys, you can realize what France did to these people. The money they demanded for was more than 10 times Haiti's annual income at the time. 10 times annual. So it's like Haiti's income for 10 years. And remember, this was not money to rebuild Haiti or to help its people. This was money to compensate French slave owners for the loss of their slaves and land. I honestly cannot wait to come on this platform and talk to you guys about the insane compensation towards slave owners. That is a conversation on its own. Haiti was definitely locked. They had nowhere to go. So to make the first payment, Haiti had to take massive loans from French banks at high interest. You know, that meant from the very beginning, the country was paying debt with more debt. Yes, we've come and we want compensation, but we also know you are too broke to afford it. So we are willing, to be kind and give you a loan and also charge you crazy interest on that loan. Imagine your colonizer coming back to demand for compensation and then being the same person that offers to give you a loan. Huh? And because France demanded hard cash, Haiti had to send away the little wealth it had left. Ship after ship was filled with coffee, sugar, and timber, all sailing out of Port-au-Prince, not to build Haiti's future, but to refill the colonizers' bank accounts. Year after year, the payments continued. Schools, of course, you can imagine if we are paying everything to France, schools will never be built here. Hospitals never came. Everything Haiti earned went to France. And by the late 19th century, about 80% of Haiti's national budget was going straight to debt repayment. Imagine a country spending almost all its money just to pay off a ransom for freedom. For freedom. People who had already fought for their freedom. By the early 1900s, Haiti was already on its knees. For more than 80 years, the country had been sending its wealth across the Atlantic to pay France. Its economy was drained. Its leaders were struggling to govern, because what are you governing? And poverty was everywhere. And it's in moments like this, when a nation is so weak and so fragile and so vulnerable, that foreign powers, such as the United States, see an opportunity. To the US, Haiti was too valuable to ignore. It wasn't just about geography. Remember, Haiti sits in a strategic spot in the Caribbean, right next to the Panama Canal route, which the US had just finished building. To them, the geography mattered, but also it was about money. American banks and companies wanted control over Haiti's resources. And what resources are we talking about? The fertile land, the trade. And in 1915, when political instability reached a peak, Haiti had gone through multiple presidents in a few years, and violence was erupting in Port-au-Prince. The US used chaos as a pretext to invade. US Marines landed in Haiti, occupied the capital, and within days, they had seized control of the National Bank, Haiti's gold reserves. About $500,000 at the time were seized by American Marines and shipped straight to New York banks. And the US had the nerve to say, you know what, this is about protecting Haiti's finances. But to Haitians, this was daylight robbery. The little security they had hidden, the little security they had left, the savings of a battered nation was stolen under the guise of order. Why does the US do this? And this theft did not stop at gold. The US wanted to change the very foundation of Haiti's independence. For more than 100 years, Haitians had guarded one principle above all others. No foreigner should ever own Haitian land. And that law was sacred to the people of Haiti. It was the guarantee that what they had fought for in the revolution, the right to live and farm on their own soil, could never be taken away again. They treasured their land and they made sure the Constitution was clear about that. But now, under 1918, under the American occupation, these same Americans forced through a new constitution. They rewrote Haiti's laws to open the door for foreign ownership. Now, US corporations could legally buy land, set up plantations, and take control of Haitians' businesses. And guys, you realize this happens even to almost a lot of African countries. You find a foreigner with 100,000 acres of land, and they tell you, but I bought it. But I bought it. It's actually mine legally. I bought it. But what they do not actually want to admit is, how did you buy it? Under what conditions? Because I'm sure right now there is land in Haiti that still belongs to the Americans, and they will continue staying there under the guise of, I legally bought this land. But they don't want to tell you they bought that land under duress. They don't want to say that. So what some of the freedom fighters in Haiti during the revolution had defended with blood was undone with a single pen. The insult was made even worse by how US leaders talked about it. President Woodrow Wilson, who authorized the invasion, presented the new constitution as a civilizing act. Because again, these people always assume we are not civilized. So they are the ones who actually bring civilization. So he was there clapping. This is good for these people. And later, President Franklin, who actually helped draft the constitution as a young official, bragged openly that he had written Haiti's constitution himself. In American politics, this was treated as a mark of success, a flex, But again, you go back to Haiti, it was remembered as yet another violation of sovereignty. We had our constitution. Leave it alone. Leave our constitution alone. So, while you have politicians in Washington congratulating themselves, Haitians on the ground are paying the price. Because the US imposed a system of forced labor known as forgave. This is where armed Marines went into villages, rounded up peasants, and forced them to build roads and infrastructure without pay. Men were chained together and marched off like prisoners. Whipped if they resisted. Families were torn apart. In the countryside, Haitian peasants, called the Kakos, rose up in rebellion. They said, no, this ain't happening again. Of course, they were not trained soldiers. They were just farmers, workers, and villagers who refused to bow to a new foreign master. Armed with old rifles, machetes, and sheer determination, they fought guerrilla style against the Americans, hiding in the mountains, ambushing convoys, and demanding their freedom back. One of their most famous leaders was Charlemagne Perrault, a former Haitian officer. He became the symbol of resistance, calling on his people to defend their land as their ancestors had done in the revolution. To Haitians, Perrault was a hero. To the Americans, he was a bandit. When US forces finally killed him in 1919, they tied his body to a door and photographed it, trying to scare Haitians into submissions. But this whole thing backfired. Perrault's defiant death turned him into a martyr, a reminder that Haiti's spirit of resistance could never be erased. But the US military was relentless. They burned villages, same pattern, same thing with these France people. Bombed resistance camps and massacred fighters. By the time the rebellion was crushed, thousands of Haitians had been killed. So, while American newspapers painted the occupation as modernization, ordinary Haitians lived through chains, whips, and bullets, the same tool of slavery their ancestors had fought to destroy. I know at this rate they were asking, why did we even fight for this freedom? Because, man, we just dealt with France and then the Americans are here. First, you are occupying our land, you are trading through our port, and now you are even killing our people. But you see, again we said, we are going to admire Haitians because of their sheer determination. These people, there's just something about them because I can't imagine what they were going through back then. Majority of the countries in Africa were still under colonization. And that is why when you see these people fighting and you go back and you realize what year this was, you just have to clap for them. This particular occupation by the Americans lasted until 1934, when the US Marines left. But they did not leave Haiti free. They left it fragile. On paper, people went ahead and said sovereignty was restored in Haiti. But in reality, the US still controlled Haiti's finances and customs through American advisors. For years after the occupation ended, the country's economy was weak, its leaders were divided, and its people tired of broken promises. The years that followed were marked by instability. Haiti cycled through presidents who often came to power through military coups, rather than elections. Corruption was widespread, and the gap between the ruling elite and the poor majority only grew wider. The rural population, the same peasants who had resisted foreign rule, remained marginalized, cut off from political power and trapped in poverty. Political violence became common. Leaders relied on the army to hold power, and opponents were often exiled, jailed, or assassinated. Instead of building strong institutions, Haiti's politics revolved around personality alliances and backroom deals. By the 1940s and 1950s, a new kind of politics began to take root: populism. Leaders tried to win support by speaking directly to the poor majority, promising to finally give them a voice. Haslan. Hey, by the way, these people, when they identify there is a gap somewhere, they will even lower themselves to your level. They will tell you that we are going to give you a voice. We are going to cater to you. I know how it feels to be a hustler in this nation. But again, most of these promises collapsed into the same old corruption and power struggles. Each failure only deepened people's frustrations. Like the way I know some people here are frustrated because you elected someone you thought, you know what, hustler. But anyways, Haitians were very tired of coups, tired of elites trading power, tired of foreign interference. They wanted someone who would bring order, someone who looked like them, spoke like them, and seemed to understand their daily struggles. And that climate opened the door for Francois Duvalier, a doctor by training known as Papa Doc for his work in public health. He presented himself as the opposite of the old elite, dark-skinned, here not because of color, but deeply connected to Haiti's Black identity. He spoke the language of the rural people and promised protection from both the foreign powers abroad and the wealthy families at home. In 1957, he rode that wave of frustration straight into the presidency. Because if someone is promising you all these things, why not elect him? Many Haitians saw him as the answer to decades of instability. But once in power, Papa Doc showed a very different face. He began by reshaping the army, sidelining officers he did not trust, and building a new private militia, loyal only to him. Is this not familiar, guys? Is this not familiar? Huh? This force became infamous as the Tonton Macoute. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but the Tonton Macoute were not a regular police force. They were a gang of loyalists, often poor men armed with machetes, guns, and total immunity. Dressed in dark glasses and straw hats, they roamed the streets and countryside as Papa Doc's enforcers. Their job was very simple: crush opposition and spread fear. If someone criticized the government, the Macoute might show up at night, drag them away, and leave their body in public as a warning. Try this, and we are coming for you. Torture, executions, disappearances. This became daily life under Duvalier. But Papa Doc did not just rely on this brute force. He also understood the power of belief. Haiti's rural people who were poor held voodoo as a central part of their lives, and Duvalier deliberately wrapped himself in its imagery. He cultivated the aura of a mystic leader, sometimes dressing in black, black, like Baron Samedi, the voodoo spirit of death. Through propaganda, symbols, and rituals, he encouraged the idea that he was not just a man, but a figure with supernatural protection. To oppose him, many Haitians felt, was to risk more than death. It was to risk spiritual distraction. On the international stage, Duvalier also played his cards well. The Cold War was raging, and the United States was desperate to keep communism out of the Caribbean after the Cuban Revolution in 1959. So Duvalier exploited this fear. He positioned himself as a staunch anti-communist, and in return Washington tolerated his brutality. As long as Papa Doc Duvalier wasn't a communist, his dictatorship was treated as acceptable. Aid and loans flowed in, much of it feeding corruption and his personal fortunes, while ordinary Haitians saw little improvement in their lives. By the early 1960s, Papa Doc had declared himself president for life. His opponents were either dead, exiled, or silenced. His militia ruled the streets. His face was on posters and coins. His voice dominated the radio. To ordinary Haitians, politics no longer meant elections or representation. It meant survival under a leader who had blended fear, mysticism, and foreign backing into one of the most suffocating regimes the country had ever known. But when he passed in 1971, given that he had already declared himself president for life, and instead of this dictatorship dying with him, it was passed down like property to his 19-year-old son, Jean-Claude Duvalier, who became known as Baby Doc. So we had Papa Doc, now we have Baby Doc. A 19-year-old coming to rule a nation that had fought the Napoleon army. But at first, some Haitians hoped, this Baby Doc might be different. He was young, Western educated, and seemed less obsessed with mysticism than his father. But he quickly proved he had inherited his father's thirst for power and his love for luxury. The Tonton Macoute remained in place, continuing their reign of terror. Opposition voices continued being silenced, prisons remained full, and fear hung over daily life. But where Papa Doc had used mysticism and fear as his main weapons, Baby Doc leaned heavily on corruption and extravagance. Foreign aid and loans poured into Haiti throughout the 1970s and 1980s, especially from the United States, which still valued Haiti as an anti-communist ally during the Cold War. On paper, this money was supposed to modernize the economy of Haiti and improve living conditions, but in reality, much of it ended in the pockets of the Duvalier family and their inner circle, while ordinary Haitians struggled with poverty, hunger, and poor health care. Baby Doc and his wife Michelle Bennett lived like royalty. They hosted lavish parties. If you remember even our conversation on Mother Teresa, they even hosted Mother Teresa. I mean, that is why most people are so mad that this was the environment Mother Teresa was walking into, praising these people and saying how these people identify with the poor. No, because all these guys did was party, buy sport cars, and reportedly flew in luxuries from abroad while their people starved. The gap between the ruling elite and the poor majority grew wider than ever. By the 1980s, discontent was boiling over. Haiti's economy collapsed under debt, unemployment, there was a lot of it, and also resentment against the Duvalier spread across the country. In 1986, after mass protests and growing international pressure, Baby Doc fled the country on a US plane. It's always this country giving people these planes. Always these people helping these dictators escape. All right, he flew on that plane, guys, ending nearly 30 years of Duvalier family dictatorship. When he fled in 1986, Haitians poured in the streets celebrating. For the first time in nearly 30 years, the Duvalier dynasty was gone. People believed a new chapter was finally opening, one where Haiti could breathe again, build democracy, and reclaim its future. But the reality was harsh. The departure of the Duvaliers left behind a hollowed-out state, an economy in ruins, and an army still loyal to its power. In the years that followed, Haiti stumbled through a series of short-lived governments, military rule, and constant coups. Every time hope rose, instability cut it short. Then, in 1990, Haiti experienced something historic. its first truly democratic election. And the winner was a priest from the slums, Jean-Bertrand Aristide. Now, Aristide was no ordinary politician. He was a liberation theology priest. He preached about justice, dignity, and the rights of the poor. To Haiti's majority, long ignored, lied to, and oppressed, he was a voice they could trust. His victory was overwhelming, a landslide that reflected the hunger for change. But the old powers inside Haiti and abroad, they were not ready to let that change take root. Within 8 months of taking office, Aristide was overthrown in a military coup. Thousands of his supporters were killed in the crackdown that followed. And once again, the promise of freedom was choked by violence. And then came the Americans. There's a crisis here. Let's try and solve it, In 1994, under President Bill Clinton, U.S. forces intervened and restored Aristide to power. But it wasn't a clean victory. Aristide could return only under one condition. Haiti had to open its economy to foreign imports, cut tariffs, and privatize state companies. Wait, what? These were the classic neoliberal reforms pushed by Washington and the International Monetary Fund. And it's at this point where we say, be scared when you see the US and the IMFs and the World Bank come in to solve a crisis in your nation. They introduced all these things, and the sharpest blow came with rice. Remember, for generations, Haitian farmers had grown rice to feed the nation. Aristide himself once called rice the mother of Haiti. But under Clinton's deal, tariffs were cut so low that cheap, subsidized US rice flooded into Haiti. Haitian farmers could not compete. Within a few years, entire farming communities were bankrupt. By the early 2000s, Haiti, once self-sufficient in rice, was importing more than 80% of its rice from the United States. What? What do you mean? And this is where it hurts. Most of that rice came from Clinton's home state of Arkansas, where agribusiness giants benefited directly from Haitians' dependency. You want to tell me that you come to our country where we were good, we had enough supply of rice, and then you cut the tariffs, and you do all these changes to our country that we cannot even supply rice to our own nation. And then what you are going to do, you are going to give contracts to your people in Arkansas so that they can supply their low-grade rice to Haiti. And then they are the ones who end up with the money. That is actually disappointing. Years later, in 2010, Clinton himself admitted it was a mistake.
We genuinely thought we were helping Haiti, and we made this devil's bargain on rice, and it wasn't the right thing to do. We should have continued to work to help them be self-sufficient in agriculture.
Sitting before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, he said, "It may have been good for some of my farmers in Arkansas, but it has not worked. It was a mistake that I have to live with every day." What is that? What does he mean? Did he not know it was a mistake? You cannot tell me that when these people do the things they do, they don't know they are doing them. They do them and they know it's by design. Because by then, the damage had already been done. Haiti's food sovereignty was gone. So don't come and just apologize in front of Senate. No. And again, another shocker. Clinton's role in Haiti did not end in the 1990s. After the catastrophic earthquake in 2010 that killed over 200,000 people and left millions homeless, the former US president reappeared, and this time as a central figure in Haiti's reconstruction. Clinton co-chaired the Interim Haiti Recovery Commission, which was supposed to oversee billions of dollars in aid. You remember how people donated? You remember how the world came together for Haiti after that earthquake? Then this person reappears again. But then again, instead of empowering Haitians to rebuild their own country, this commission was dominated by foreign donors, contractors and NGOs. They made decisions in boardroom, not even involving Haitian communities. Of the billions pledged, the money you guys contributed, I still remember that earthquake. But of the billions that was contributed, only a fraction ever reached ordinary Haitians. And you know where much of it went, right? Much of it went to international organizations, US contractors, and foreign NGOs that built their own offices and increased their salaries rather than Haitian schools and homes. Rather than build that, you are going to build a whole NGO office in Haiti. And then you pay these people, I don't know how much. Clinton also used his influence to push projects that benefited outsiders more than Haitians. A notorious example was the promotion of industrial parks and sweatshops where Haitians earned starvation wages sewing clothes for US companies. Meanwhile, the displaced survivors of the earthquake were left in tent camps for years with little access to clean water, health care, or housing. And to make matters worse, the United Nations, the same institution that claimed to be in Haiti to protect and rebuild after the earthquake, became the source of one of the deadliest disasters in the country's modern history. In 2010, just months after the earthquake, UN peacekeepers from Nepal were stationed at a base near the Artibonite River, one of Haiti's main water sources. The base sewage system was poorly built and leaking directly into the river. These UN troops carried with them a strain of cholera. You all know what cholera is, a deadly waterborne disease that Haiti had never experienced before. When their waste contaminated the river, the disease spread like wildfire. Within weeks, people in villages along the river began to fall sick with vomiting and diarrhea. At first, Haitians did not even know what was happening. Hospitals were already overwhelmed from the earthquake, and suddenly, they were flooded with patients collapsing from dehydration. Entire families were wiped out in days. The epidemic spread across the country, from the mountains to the coast. Cholera killed with brutal speed. By the time the outbreak slowed, more than 10,000 Haitians were dead, and hundreds of thousands were infected. And this was not just a natural disaster. No, it was not. It was imported by the very peacekeepers who had come under the UN flag. For years, the UN denied responsibility. Officials deflected questions, They avoided investigations and claimed there was not enough proof to link their troops to the outbreak. Meanwhile, Haitians were busy burying their dead, holding funerals in mass graves, and watching children, parents, and elders die of a disease the country had never seen before. When the evidence became undeniable, with scientists tracing the strain directly back to Nepalese peacekeepers, the UN still refused to pay reparations. They issued vague statements of regret, but never accepted legal accountability. To this day, no compensation has been given to the families of the victims. Actually, the UN spent more money fighting lawsuits against itself than it ever did helping cholera survivors. The cholera epidemic was not the only strain the UN left in Haiti. While the disease took lives, the behavior of some of these UN officials took dignity. Reports began to surface of sexual abuse and exploitation by UN troops. These were not isolated incidents. Across Haiti, especially in the poorest neighborhoods, and the tent camps after the earthquake, Haitian women and girls began telling similar stories. Peacekeepers, the very men who were supposed to protect them, were instead using their hunger and desperation as weapons. Young girls, some as young as 12 and 13 years old, were lured with scraps of food, a few dollars, or even soap. In one of the most infamous cases, more than 100 Sri Lankan peacekeepers were implicated in running a child sex ring between 2004 and 2007. I'm even avoiding a lot of details here, guys, because I want to stick to the community guidelines. But I want you to check that out. Because these victims were left scarred for life. Some were pregnant, others shunned by their families in shame, and yet, what happened when the truth came out? The soldiers were quietly sent home. No trials in Haiti, no justice for the victims, and the Sri Lankans were not the only ones. Cases surfaced involving troops from Uruguay, Pakistan, and Brazil as well. In one incident, a video showed a soldier from Uruguay laughing as he sexually assaulted an 18-year-old Haitian man. Outrage erupted, but once again, accountability never came. The UN claimed it had zero tolerance for sexual exploitation. But in practice, peacekeepers operated under immunity agreements that placed them outside Haitian laws. To Haitians, this meant that the blue helmets could violate their daughters, their sons, and their communities and walk away untouched. At the same time, the UN mission in Haiti, known as MINUSTA, acted less like peacekeepers and more like an occupying force. They patrolled the streets in armored vehicles, carried heavy weapons, and sometimes opened fire during protests. Haitians who demonstrated against corruption or foreign control were met not with protection, but with tear gas and bullets. Can you imagine a scenario where here in Kenya we are protesting against bad governance, and then assuming the UN peacekeepers are here, instead of letting us demonstrate, these are the same people who are helping the government shoot you and tear gas you. And when they were doing this, there was something bitter growing in the people of Haiti. The UN was not seen as neutral in that place. It was seen as part of the machinery that kept the country under foreign management. The cholera epidemic, the sexual abuse scandals, the violent crackdowns, they all reinforced the same message. The international community was not in Haiti to empower Haitians, but to control them. So, while the world looked at Haiti through headlines of failed state or aid dependency, Haitians themselves looked at the blue helmets and saw something else entirely. Another foreign occupation dressed up in the language of peace. No, we don't want you here. By the mid-2010, after years of cholera deaths, sexual abuse scandals, and violent crackdowns, Haitians had had enough. Protests against the UN mission, known as MINUSTA, erupted across the country. People carried signs calling the peacekeepers occupiers, not protectors. And the chants demanded MINUSTA should go home. No, go. Because to many Haitians, the blue helmets had become a symbol of humiliation. Instead of rebuilding trust, they deepened their wounds. Instead of leaving security in Haitian hands, they kept the country under foreign management. The cholera epidemic and the abuse scandals were not seen as accidents. They were seen as proof that the UN's presence did more harm than good. Under mounting pressure from Haitians, and with international criticism growing, the UN began to scale down its mission. In 2017, MINUSTA officially withdrew, replaced by a smaller force called MINUJUST, supposedly focused on justice and human rights, but by then, the damage had already been done. To most Haitians, it did not matter what new name or mandate the mission carried. The distrust to the UN was permanent. The withdrawal left behind two legacies: a country still unstable and fragile, and a population deeply skeptical of any foreign presence claiming to help. To Haitians, the lesson was clear. The world's institutions had come with promises of peace and progress, but left behind diseases, abuse, and betrayal. And this brings us to Haiti's present-day crisis. In 2021, President Jovenel Moise was assassinated in his home, a killing that shocked the nation and left the country leaderless. The investigation exposed layers of corruption, foreign mercenaries, and political betrayal. But to this day, many questions remain unanswered. Who ordered the killing? Who benefited from his death? Haitians were left with more suspicions than answers. In the power vacuum that followed, gangs rose to dominance. Armed groups now control large part of Port-au-Prince, cutting off neighborhoods, kidnapping civilians, and even blocking fuel and food supplies. Ordinary Haitians live under the daily threat of violence, trapped between gang wars, poverty, and a government too weak to protect them. And once again, the calls for foreign intervention have begun. The United States, the UN, and regional powers talk about sending in new missions to stabilize Haiti, repeating the same language Haitians have had for more than a century. But to many Haitians, the memory of past occupations is still fresh. They ask, how can the same powers that brought cholera, abuse, and betrayal be trusted to bring peace now? How? Today, Haiti stands at a crossroads, a nation with a proud history of resistance, still carrying the weight of deaths, dictators, foreign occupations, and failed aid. Its people continue to demand sovereignty and dignity, even as the world circles once again with promises that sound all too familiar. Remember, after President Jovenel was assassinated in 2021, we said Haiti slid into an even deeper vacuum of power. There was no parliament, no fully functioning government, and no president to unite the country. And into that void stepped these gangs you are seeing. Today, about 90% of Port-au-Prince is carved up by armed groups. Entire neighborhoods are ruled not by the state, but by warlords. Roads, markets, even hospitals depend on gang permission to operate. The most notorious figure in all this is Jimmy Barbecue Sherizia, a former police officer who founded the G9 family and allies and now fronts a broader coalition called Vive Ensemble, supposed to mean living together. And this coalition coordinates major offensives across the city. He calls himself a revolutionary fighting for the poor, but his gangs rule through terror, kidnappings, extortion, massacres, and roadblocks. To ordinary Haitians, daily life has become a nightmare. I mean, we are talking about kidnapping for ransom, very rampant. Students, bus passengers, shopkeepers, anyone can be taken. Families now are selling everything to free a loved one, and some never return. You also have roadblocks and tough wars that are choking off supply routes. When gangs block the road, to the fuel terminal, the country nearly shuts down. Hospitals will run out of power, ambulances are stalled, and food markets collapse. And then you have the massacres and raids that continue to terrorize neighborhoods. Homes are being burned, families are being displaced, women and girls are essayed to punish communities who are seen as disloyal. And then, obviously, there is displacement. Today, around 1.3 million Haitians, half of them children, are living as refugees in their own country, forced from their homes by gang violence, and the state is almost absent. Haiti's police are outgunned, underpaid, and often accused of colluding with gangs. Then, politicians have long been accused of using gangs as tools to crush protests, intimidate rivals, and hold power. And in this sense, gangs are not just criminals. They've become part of Haiti's political system. The international community has once again stepped in, as we said. In 2023, the UN authorized a Kenyan-led multinational security support mission where we had about 1,000 officers who are mostly Kenyans deployed. But they are also struggling to contain the violence. They are struggling. And just the other day, that is September 30th, 2025, this same year, the UN approved a new, far more militarized mission, which is our 5,500 strong gun suppression force with broader powers under Chapter 7 to hunt, arrest, and dismantle Haiti's armed groups. Now, whether Haitians will see this as protection or another foreign occupation remains to be seen. Meanwhile, the US continues sharpening its stance. In May 2025, Washington officially labeled Barbecue's army a foreign terrorist organization. And in August 2025, federal prosecutors indicted Jimmy, the barbecue guy. Now, on paper, this seems tough, But to Haitians on the ground, these headlines mean little if their streets remain ruled by bullets. Economically, the country is collapsing, and that's the sad reality. Inflation is crushing families, jobs are scarce, and remittances from the diaspora are one of the few lifelines keeping households alive. Hunger is very widespread, and for millions, the next meal is never guaranteed. And yet, despite all this, Haitians continue to resist. Grassroots groups, churches, and communities are calling for homegrown solutions instead of another cycle of foreign boots and broken promises. They argue that the fight is not just against gangs, it's against the system of foreign control and domestic corruption that allowed gangs to thrive in the first place. And Haiti's story is not just tragedy, it is also resistance. It is the story of a people who broke the chains of slavery when the world said it was impossible. A people who defeated Napoleon's army and inspired every struggle for freedom that came after. But it's also the story of punishment. From France's death to America's occupation, to the Duvaliers' terror, which was very much supported by America, to Clinton's rise and aid traps, to the UN's cholera and abuse, Haiti has been made to pay again and again, not for its failures, but for its audacity to be free. And now in 2025, as gangs rule the streets and foreign troops prepare to return, Haitians find themselves at the same question they faced in 1804. Will they control their own destiny, or will the world control it for them? The world looks at Haiti and sees chaos. But Haitians look at themselves and see survival. They see mothers who still cook when there's no food. They'll go and gather the little they can. Fathers who will walk to work through gang checkpoints. Children who still laugh in camps of displacement. They see communities that refuse to die, even when the world has written their obituary 1,000 times. And that is Haiti's truth. It's not just a land of suffering. It's a land of fighters. A land that has endured slavery, death, dictators, foreign occupations, earthquakes, cholera, new gangs, and yet still stands. And the question is not whether Haitians can survive. They already are. They are surviving. They are trying so much to survive. The question is whether the world will finally stop punishing them for their freedom. Because if 1804 taught us anything, it is this. When Haiti rises, it doesn't just rise for itself. It rises for every oppressed people who still believe that chains can be broken. Because if we go back, it is through Haiti's resistance that majority of African countries acquired strength, That majority of the people said, enough is enough. That black people stood tall and said, if they did this to Napoleon, we can do it even here in Kenya. You've seen them, the guerrillas, how they used that tactic. The same one that was being used here in Kenya by the Mau Mau. They were a source of inspiration. And now when we follow the story, a lot bothers me. Because you can trace the role the US has played in the collapse of Haiti. You can place the role institutions like IMF have played in the collapse of Haiti. You can place the role of the UN, and that breaks my heart. I feel like they are still being punished. I think actually foreign countries look at Haiti and they say, look at how we still make an example of this nation. They are still using Haiti to make us afraid. And every day I see Haitians, surviving and deciding it's another day. We have gangs all over, but let's fight back. That really should motivate us as Africans. The saddest part about researching about Haiti is being able to point all the way to where this problem started. If France left Haitians the way they were, because these are people who fought for their independence, let them be. And I hope we can come back here and talk about how France is actually kaput. It's done. All these Europe countries cannot keep doing what they did to us in 1800s. I saw another comment where someone said, actually, what would France do without Africa? What would it do? Because if they did that to Haiti, even after Haiti acquired its freedom, and then they went and did the same to the countries in West Africa. Like, what is France without Africa? Actually, part of the resources that were acquired in Haiti, the money, went ahead and contributed to the building of that famous tower. People go there. And that is why I don't even want your visas. Because I cannot stand at that tower and take a photo. Because now we understand our history. We understand that one of that famous tower where you guys go and take photos has a dark history behind it. Dark. My ancestors would cry if I ever post for a photo in that place. Nope. Nada. At this rate, it's not even a flex. It's the ability to say as an African, stay with your visas. It's not a flex. It's just me feeling that there's so much about us that we don't know. Because I've always been curious about Haiti. And what I've just presented to you guys, it's not even all of it. Go back and study Haiti. Because if we don't study Haiti, that will now happen to other African countries. You start acting there like you are free. Start acting smart. How did Duvalia, Baby Doc, get into a US plane? How? How did America continue supplying Haiti with aid? Aid. We are coming back here to talk about this thing we call aid. Aid. And I love that Traore actually said, by the way, we've just been receiving aid. Where is this aid going? I can't wait to come back and talk to you about aid. But we need to actually study Haiti. Haiti should actually be our manual for survival. Because what they are doing there, wait until Africans start acting smart. They'll make sure you are fighting among yourselves, and then they'll give gangs power. They'll supply them with mercenaries. All these tools, they will supply them to make sure that your country is never stable. My heart breaks for Haiti. I know even here on the platform, we have a lot of people who watch us from there. So I'm not sure if I've done this story justice, but feel free to let me know what your take home has been. Let us know if we missed out on anything. Let us know what else can we come back and talk about when it comes to Haiti. Haiti should be our manual for survival. And France, that is why and thank you guys for the feedback towards our last video on Macron and Ruto. I see you guys are now learning. It's a beautiful feeling. When you see people like Ruto continue smiling with people, colonizers like Macron, it's a pity. That guy is a representative of Haiti's wounds, and you are just there. This thing, this thing, this thing. This Kenya's coffee. Shame on you. Because it's double standards. When you are smiling with the same people who led Haiti to its downfall, and then you send our armies there, and you are fighting for the freedom of Haiti. Can't you spot the source? Don't you know the roots of what is happening in Haiti? And then you go and encourage colonizers to try our coffee and our tea. I know this has been a long episode, guys, but hey, it was a conversation worth having with you. Let's continue learning and relearning. I look at France and the US in a very different way right now. By the way, the downfall of majority of these countries, black countries, by design. By design, they know what they need to do. They know what they have to put together to make sure that you never rise. They know they will fill your countries with foreign aid and donations. And guys, I cannot wait to come and do a conversation on foreign aid, because now you will finally understand why we've been receiving aids for centuries, but we are still underdeveloped. Now you will understand the chains of foreign aid and donation. You will understand. But do have yourself a lovely weekend. I hope I get to see you next week. We've started a new month, November. By the way, I'm filming this on my birthday, and today I don't get to celebrate at Aisha birthday with Mahatma Gandhi. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and I get to see you next week. A huge shout out to my team. They do an amazing job to help put this together. I would be lying if I said this is all Lynn. No, it's not. It has taken a lot of people to be able to bring you this episode. So shout out to the team that you don't get to see in front of the camera. And shout out to you guys that continue contributing towards independent journalism. It's an amazing feeling to come here and independently talk to you about what is in my mind without someone telling me, no, you cannot say that. No, you've made this platform so free for us that it gives us joy to come here and just talk about what we need to talk about. So we appreciate your contribution towards this work, towards the research, towards making sure that we keep showing up here every single day. So always remember you can contribute towards our MPESA. We also have a PayBill account right there. We also have PayPal. So feel free to use any of those, or the super thanks category right there below. And also, if you are not in a position to contribute, we appreciate you subscribing, like this video as well, so it reaches as many people as possible. See you guys on the next one. Bye.